Welcome to EnRich Relationships, a podcast designed to help leaders improve their personal and professional relationships from a father and son team.
We each bring executive corporate experience in both public and private companies, as well as personal experience as brothers, fathers, and sons. I'm Dax Rich.
And I'm Larry Rich, and together we discuss different leadership skills and concepts that will help you at work and at home. So it's probably good for me to go first in this podcast because being the oldest, I have made the most mistakes. And so we're going to talk today about learning from our mistakes. And one of the things that I realize more and more and more is I make lots of mistakes. But as we've talked about in another podcast, if we'll surround ourselves with people who are smarter than we are, we really can learn a lot from that. And when we make mistakes, what's really wonderful is how they treat us and support us and help us to learn from those mistakes. And not that we're trying to just be buffoons and make lots of errors and goofballs and all that kind of stuff, but we all make mistakes. And the way we roll with those mistakes can help other people when they make mistakes to feel much more comfortable in not only owning that more just because it's an opportunity to learn, but also to identify, okay, knowing what the mistake is, what can we learn and how can we make it better? Thomas Edison, everyone I think is very familiar with, a great inventor, learned because he made so many mistakes and had far more mistakes than inventions. But his inventions were amazing because of what he learned from his mistakes. And it's a wonderful principle that can help us also in our families, because sometimes we may feel like, I have made such a big mistake. I have really blown it. And if we embrace that, then we teach our kids the same principle, that when they make mistakes, they're stuck. And really, it's what happens next after we've made the mistake. What do we do with that? And so much of it is things that can be fixed, or it really isn't as big of a deal as it may seem to us personally. But we have to be willing to do something with that.
There's good that comes from all mistakes, whether big or small. What mistakes do is they humble us. Mistakes require that we feel some sort of guilt, we feel some sort of disappointment, and mistakes in pretty much every case will cause us to pause for a moment and to think about what we've done, to think about what brought us to that moment, and then reflect. And really, that's a gift. When we're given an opportunity to pause and reflect, then that's an opportunity for us to improve. I also love another cliche that says the only time we fail is when we stop trying. And so even a mistake, while it might feel like a catastrophic failure, if it's a big deal, or even if it's a small deal, we might just feel that we're total failures. The truth is we only fail when we stop learning and when we stop saying, what can I do better next time? And so when we talk about relationships, that opportunity to pause, that opportunity to reflect inward and say, what do I need to change? What did I do wrong? And think about it. It goes back to this idea of emotional intelligence, where we go through self-awareness as the first principle, the opportunity to look at our own emotions, look at our own actions, our own thoughts, and consider what is good, what is not good, what works, what doesn't work, and really start to distinguish or differentiate in our mind what is good and what do we need to continue doing and what should we stop doing.
As followers of Jesus Christ, he was without sin, and it's so interesting that someone who was perfect, if you will, was so quick to forgive others who were not. And that was the healing power, one of his many, but one of the greatest healing powers he had was his ability to forgive those who'd made mistakes. And I think as his followers, regardless of faith, that the principle there is that healing can come by forgiving. And part of that could be really in forgiving ourselves. And there's great movies that have been made about that. That's coming to my mind, but also just great examples in life of someone who carried around a burden for a long, long time that they could not forgive themselves. Maybe it was because of a bad relationship, something that was said. Many times it's at the holidays or other times where things get said or out of a heated discussion, something's said, and it's just not let go of. And then maybe something happens that humbles or softens the hearts of those that are involved. And then there's that asking for forgiveness and the miracle that occurs in the healing that occurs in forgiveness. And so an important part is forgiving others, but especially to be willing to forgive ourselves.
And that, again, ties perfectly with the idea of emotional intelligence, where the first thing we do is we focus on ourselves. We look inward. We do some self-awareness, self-management, say, what can I do to improve? And then we focus on others. It's just kind of like on the airplane. On every airplane, they tell the adults to put on their air mask before they put it on somebody else. We need to take care of what's going on inward before we can really effectively take care of what's going on outward with other people. I love the example you shared of harboring a failure or mistake that we've made and letting that consume us. Well, then how on earth are we going to help somebody else who is going through the same situation if we can't get past the own obstacle in our own way? So learning to forgive ourselves, learning to take the time, to take the opportunity to acknowledge that we've made a mistake, but also being able to take the time to forgive ourselves and to move past it and say, that was a learning moment. Like my dad said, I also made lots of mistakes in my career, especially as a leader. As a leader, there's a lot of pressure to get it right. And there's a lot of pressure to be correct because other people depend on you, whether it be for their salary, whether it be for their career. Other people depend on leaders. And so there's a lot of pressure to get it right. But I would say the best leaders are the ones who really make those mistakes because they're bold and they're looking to try new things. They're looking to learn. And as they seek new knowledge, as they seek opportunities to learn, they'll make a fair amount of mistakes along the way. But that's what allows them to learn from those mistakes and to say, now I know definitively what not to do, or I know definitively what to do now that I've made this mistake. And those are the leaders that we turn to. Those are the leaders that we trust, whether it be Mr. Edison, or maybe there's other leaders in your own history or your own experiences that you can think of who have made mistakes, have owned up to them, but then they also give a plan on how they're going to improve, on how they're going to action that, how they're going to change moving forward. And those are the people that inspire us and that are able to build more effective relationships because they've moved past their own mistake and they can help you to do the same.
And as this podcast is approaching the holiday season, it's probably really, really helpful to, again, remember that we've talked about setting clear expectations, that if one of those expectations we have of ourselves is, I'm going to let go of this, I'm going to move past this situation with somebody, or I'm going to resolve, try to heal or bring peace into a situation where it hasn't existed for a long time, that we're not too hard on ourselves, that we're willing to forgive ourselves, saying you've carried this burden for a long, long time, but trust that God will help you, trust that you can do it with His help, and that the reason you're having the feelings of wanting to forgive or move past it are coming from Him, and that all things are possible with His help. Thank you for tuning into today's episode, and be sure to check out our other episodes where we explore additional ways to enrich your relationships at work and with your family.
Before you take off, we invite you to subscribe and share what you liked from this episode with friends, colleagues, and family. Take a moment and share feedback and suggestions with us directly at enrichrelationshipspodcast@gmail.com.
Lasting change comes from enriching your relationships both at work and at home.